Welcome back to the E2E channel with Keeven White from White Space Creative. And we left off talking about your experience with Little Tykes. I'd like to pick up about why you left. What was the impetus? Talk to us about that.
Well, as I said before, I was given a lot of opportunity to grow, and I'd moved into management to a degree where I was managing the print and collateral department. And by that time, Tom Murdo had been gone for 5+ years anyway, and it was owned by another corporation which was bringing in some other policies and practices, and it's kind of diluting what Tom had built up. And they had a practice that they called the lifeboat drill, where you basically took the people in your department and ranked them according to whatever criteria that they ranked you, and then if they ever had a cutback, you had to cut. Say they said the 20% of your lifeboat's not going to make it, you had to fire the bottom 20% in your lifeboat. And I was there for the first time they ever had to implement that, and I had to let a gentleman go by the name of Greg Cascadden, who is now has been my right-hand man since I started up the company, and he's been invaluable in the growth of the business. So it always bugged me, the fact that he was more talented and more worthy of a lot of people that, by their definitions, I should keep, and I knew that he wasn't, that he shouldn't have been cut, and he was more valuable than that. And I immediately went in after I fired him and went in and gave my resignation, because I said I did my job, but now I'm going to give you some notice. I gave him like 4 months notice, and I think I was there for probably 2.
Gutsy move.
Yeah.
Now, you had already thought about starting up your firm, but you hadn't started up your firm, and you went home and announced to your, actually, you probably gave her a little fair warning, but it was still one of those transitions that all of us entrepreneurs need to make at one time. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about that? Did it scare you?
No, I wasn't too scared about it. It was a pretty low-risk situation in my life. But the scariest part was I just got married in September, and this is November, and I'm going home telling my wife that I'm now quitting my job and starting my own business. And she kind of looks at me. It's like, okay, but
yeah, okay.
You could tell there's a little bit of concern in the eyes.
Yes, I was kind of rethinking, okay, I married this guy. Now, what was Bill's phone number? Right.
Yeah.
So tell us how you'd actually started, and then we're going to get into some of the things you've learned that you can share as, let's call them, educational pieces for our aspiring entrepreneurs. How did you start, though, White Space Creative?
Definitely low risk. I basically started out of a bedroom in my house. I leased some computer equipment and bought a couple desks and things like that, and had a new phone line put in. My dad was in printing, so we printed up some business cards, and that was pretty much all it took to get started. And I think that by keeping it low risk, I think I had to work maybe 10 hours a month to cover my expenses. It gave me the ability to pick and choose and do some things that I thought were really appropriate for me to do, and not have to jump on something just because it was there.
Now, were you doing that for the freedom, or were you doing that as a kind of a segue into building something at the time? What were your motivations for it?
Well, I remember being in college, and I had a course called The Business of Graphic Design, and the teacher was Karen Skunta, who has a nice agency, or a good agency, up in the Cleveland area. And she had us write out a 1-year and a 5-year personal business plan. So where do you plan on being in a year, and where do you plan on being in 5? And it was prior to me even starting at Little Tykes, and I remember writing that in the 5-year plan I was going to have a nice loft apartment someplace in the Philadelphia area, working on some packaging clients that I had, and walking my dog down to the local coffee house, and the vision of what you were going to do in college and stuff like that. And so I had that kind of in the back of my mind, but when I first started, I didn't have any specific immediate plans as to where it was going to go. I knew I needed some experience in the actual business side of things for a little while, so I just kind of took it a little bit slower. But I think one of the things that I was able to do early on was, within a year, we were mentioning, we did the Roadways annual report, so that was a nice big windfall project which created some nice revenue, so we immediately turned that revenue into our first hire. So as soon as we were able to hire somebody, we took a leap, but that was about a year.
You didn't go out and buy the BMW and then take the vacation in Jamaica at a 5-star?
I still drive an old pickup truck with a smashed-in rear end, so.
This is very cool. At what point did you decide, this is going pretty good, I'm kind of enjoying what I'm doing, maybe I just keep hiring some people, maybe I can build something here, even though you still have the smashed up pickup truck that's out in front of our building. When did that happen and how did it happen?
The real drive for growth actually probably came on 9/11.
Okay.
You know, everybody wanted to go do something, whether it's to go sign up and fight or whatever you could do.
Sure.
And I think I decided the thing I could do was they were attacking the capitalism.
Our way of life.
And so my way of fighting was to
Build something to
Build
get
something.
back. Wow. I mean, that's a very honorable reaction.
It was right after that I really started planning a long-term strategy. And I think it was January of '02, I brought the 6 or 8 people that were with me at the time down to my house, and I probably talked for about 6 hours, painting a picture of where we're going. But during that 6 hours, you know, my whole goal was to paint the picture in their mind of what success looked like and where we were going. And I think most of those people are definitely still with me in a lot of the core of what we've built today. And I call it burning bridges. I burned a lot of bridges that day. I went in front of all these people and said, this is what we're going to do. And there's no turning back because now we've said it, it's out in the open. So, and it was funny because to demonstrate that point, I had a video of we live in a little Cape Cod house that we've been renovating for a number of years down on Lake Cable in Canton. And we bought it as a little Cape Cod, and we ripped the roof off and built a second story and a 3-story 20 by 30 addition up the back. And my wife's father and I did most of the work. But to illustrate the point of no going back, I had some video that my wife shot of me from underneath the house. We had dug out the back, excavated the back of the house, so you saw the basement wall kind of exposed. And you start hearing this thump, thump, thump. And then all of a sudden, the whole basement wall collapses. And I was on the inside with a sledgehammer, with the house above me with a temporary wall. Like, we're not going to go back from here. It's definitely, we're going forward with this because we just burned that bridge.
It's an amazing story. Do you tell that to anybody else in your firm?
Not the 9/11 part, but the burning bridge part we do. We talk about it frequently.
From that business plan that was created out of ashes, if you will, what kind of principles did you have?
Well, it was principles around our people for the most part. We had basically said there's 10 things that we have to do in order for us to get to those places, and we laid out. And basically, the 6 hours of conversation was laying out these. I think there were 10, 8 or 10 different things that we had to do in order to go to the next level, and we kind of talked about each one of those and laid out a bunch of bullet points about, and discussion points really more than bullet points about why those things were important, ranging from finding a new office place to implementing systems, creative excellence, and talked about what each of those things were. So we laid out everything, and we've 5 years, it's amazing how if you know where you're going, how much easier it is to get there. We laid out that plan, and we've been very, very close, if not ahead in a lot of cases, about where we're going. And that was it was laying out a 5-year, it was actually laying out a 20-year plan that we were 5 years into already. We broke it into 4 or 5-year tiers. There was a laying the foundation phase, which we were kind of wrapping up by the time we had this meeting, and the foundation was about defining what it is that we were doing, how we were going to get there, and even how business runs in a lot of cases. The second 5 years was about expanding capabilities. The third 5 years is about expanding sales, and the fourth 5 years is about maximizing profitability. With the end of this 20-year cycle, meaning that there was an escape hatch, or we'd have something that was sellable. And typically with a lot of small design firms especially, the success of the company lives and dies with the owner. So I was telling you earlier, I try to make myself as obsolete as possible so that if ever I need to take myself out of the equation, that the company will have the ability to go on by itself.
Let's remember that point, and we will be back momentarily in E2E with Keeven White from White Space Creative. Thank you.